All right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today we are talking about Queen and Slim from director Melina Matsoukas, starring Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith as a couple that goes on the run after killing a police officer in self-defense. It is a heavy movie, but it's also got a lot of comedy to it. It's beautiful. It's, depending on who you ask, really well done. But I asked new co-host of the show, Kolby Mac, and I was really glad to have Kolby on this one. We had a great time talking about this movie, talking about the influences, and talking about how successful this movie is with the themes that it is trying to explore. It's a heavy movie. There's a lot to talk about. So we had a long conversation, but I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So before we do get into that conversation, I want to remind you, as always, to make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You can, of course, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and now on Podchaser. And you can follow us on social media at PiecingPod. And I also think you should join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all these movies and lots more. So join that group. We want to have lots of people in there. We have some great conversations in there. A couple weirdos, but you know, what Facebook movie group isn't filled with a couple weirdos? So with that said, let's jump into the conversation about Queen and Slim. Today's episode is sponsored by the Golden Tiki, recently named one of the top tiki bars in the United States by the Food Network, and also one of the top 10 best nightlife destinations in Las Vegas by USA Today. They've got great rum, mixed drinks, and of course the Dole Whip. They've got theme nights, DJs, all kinds of fun stuff, including Al and Bud's Oasis, who are two robotic parrots that put on a great show every hour on the hour. So next time you're in Las Vegas, make sure to check out the Golden Tiki on Spring Mountain. All right, so today on the show, we're talking about Queen and Slim, and we got with us a new guest co-host. We got Kolby Mac. How's it going, Kolby?
Yo, what up? It's your boy Kolby Mac, and I am on the Piecing It Together podcast.
I've been looking forward to hearing that. That's awesome. Hey man, I'm really happy to have you here. I love what you do, and you know, as we always do on this show, you know, when it's someone's first time on the show, I always love for them to introduce themselves to my listeners. So why don't you tell people about what you do?
Yeah. Well, it's your boy, the movie Mac himself. Kolby Mac. Of course, you can find me on all the socials at Kolby Told Me on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're still into Facebook, you can find me at Kolby Mac there. All of my written movie content at KolbyToldMe.com. Pretty much, I lead a solo podcast. I try to do it in 30 minutes or less. You know, movie news, reviews. That's about it. It's pretty much whenever I want to deep down to further my conversation and amplify my movie reviews. And then I co-host the Minorities Report film podcast.
Beautiful. Yeah, it takes a lot of personality to do a solo movie review podcast because, you know, yeah, you don't want to just be like sitting there like, oh, and I really like the cinematography. You know, like you really got to have something to say, you know?
You know what? I think I grew up loving to talk to myself. So it works out, you know, sometimes I'll talk back, but that's why I try to keep it to like 30 minutes or less. Cause some folks be like, this is going on too long. But, you know, I try to do it. You know, I'm a thespian, so I was really keen to doing one person shows in high school and college. So it's been working out. It's a good translation so far.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking about Queen and Slim today, and I know you've been making the rounds. You've been talking about this movie a lot out there. Was this one that was big on your radar before it came out?
It really was. There was 3 films in particular that were like my most anticipated of the year. And then kind of at the midpoint of the year when I was looking at the rest of 2019, Queen and Slim was high up there. I love the trailer. Like, I think the trailer was
killer trailer.
Magnificently. I love when music can really amplify the trailer. And I'm one of the big proponents on having a trailer set my expectations, and that will color the way that I interpret the film, what the film is trying to tell me to expect. And unfortunately, a trailer can affect it. Some people, you know, kind of like don't say, oh, you should never consider the trailer. No, the trailer is a part of the overall film experience for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I mean, really a lot of things can affect how you end up, eventually enjoying the film when it finally gets into your brain and everything. And it's like, if you go into it with like, this movie just looks like crap, or if you go into it with like
Hmm.
this, I'm hyped for this movie. I cannot wait to see this thing. It really does make a difference.
It's all about the bar that you create. Some folks that I know my boy Kevin Brackett, on film Twitter, he doesn't
Hmm.
watch trailers at all. So the bar is set lower, and I think a film doesn't have to work as hard to try to win you over, depending upon
Sure.
like what your entry point is. But we all have different frames of references, and I've seen some films where I've been unimpressed by a trailer, and then the
Mm,
bar is set lower to where it can do something that surprises me, and then now it's earned my investment
sure.
to the film a lot. So it's unique how it's not for every film or for
You're
every
right.
genre, but it is unique what this one in particular did, and I was very excited to see it.
Absolutely, me too. Well, so this is a interesting movie for us to cover on this particular show. I mean, I know I've got some puzzle pieces that I'm looking forward to talking about. I'm sure you've got some great ones. But the weird thing about this one is it's such a heavily political movie, and it's almost kind of weird to talk about it in terms of inspirations or things that it reminded me of when I mean there's a very real issue in America that this movie is dealing with, and whether or not this movie deals with those issues responsibly, whether it has the right things to say about it, if there is a right thing to say about it, that's really the real issue around this movie, and it's gonna be I don't know. It's going to be interesting talking about it, especially, me as a white dude, like whether or not I even have the authority to talk about whether the movie handles it properly, is I think an interesting point.
Oh, absolutely. And it's tough. As a critic, you want like me. I really do try to be mindful of a lot of different things. No, I call myself the most subjectively objective movie critic because there's really not a way for me to try to separate the two. No film is objectively great or bad. No film
Sure.
is, but it's easy for a film to be subjectively great or bad because it makes it personal to you.
Mm,
And so I think that's interesting when I interpret this film. And this film markets itself and packages itself differently than other films. I was talking to
right.
someone earlier today, and it's like, obviously we know that this is a black film championed by black filmmakers, first time feature filmmakers, first time feature director, first time feature writer with very strong viewpoints, and they have a following.
Hmm.
Maybe there's an unfair expectation that a lot of these some people call them woke films, like they have to say something. Like, why can't we have a
Mm,
black film that just lets it be a black film? And it's
sure.
tough, but it's also unfair. And unfortunately, we live in a world that is unfair. And I think that there's themes that are tackled in this film, some good, some or many not so good. But we'll kind of get into those.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, why don't we start getting into some puzzle pieces? What do you got for your first one?
I think the biggest thing, and someone asked me like what I was expecting when I watched this film, said about two things. First puzzle piece is that I wanted Queen and Slim to deliver the beauty and grace of Barry Jenkins' If Beale Street Can Talk
Mm,
with the poignance and relevance of the Netflix series from Ava DuVernay, When They See Us. So my first puzzle piece is If Beale Street Can Talk, my
hmm.
number one film of 2018. Um, it's I don't it's hard to sometimes describe like what that film was, but it's like it really is like a painting on the screen. And honestly, like that is the truest film that I've kind of close to call a masterpiece. And I still feel it even after so
Sure.
long that I watched from it. And it's exceptionally powerful. It's very moving. It's like this ode to black love. And hearing interviews that Lena Waithe talked about, she was very intentional with Queen and Slim on delivering a black love story minus a white lens. And to be
Mm,
honest with you, the black love story in this film, if that was her initial goal, this film succeeds at it. In the same
sure.
way that the love story that we got in Beale Street Could Talk, in the face of, I mean, being back in the '60s and a part of New York that was just staunch with, with racism and a lot of just strifes that people have to deal with. But like the character of Stephen James and Kiki Lane in that film, it was so strong and so believable and so authentic and so unique. I mean, the visuals and the cinematography was so great to really show the best parts of what Black beauty looks like on screen. And I think that really was like Melina Matsoukas, the director of this film. She's got a very strong background, and she's primarily known for being like a really amazing music video director.
Right,
So she's
right.
got a very staunch and keen eye in capturing the beauty of Black skin on screen. And the camera work is very stylized. Like I love the framing of the shots of like this urban aesthetic that she's really, really good at setting the mood with the visuals and with the music and creating that love story. And I think that that parallel to Beale Street Could Talk is the strongest connection for me.
Right on. Yeah, I like it. I like it as a puzzle piece, and I mean, it is such a beautiful film. If Beale Street Could Talk, and the way that like every scene is just like kind of bursting with light.
Mm.
Even though what's happening, there's so much sadness to it, and so much heartbreak. It really does come from a similar place, I think, where there's so much beauty in that just just heartbreak, really.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go for my first puzzle piece. I'm gonna take something actually you were just saying there. Uh, about if Beale Street Could Talk, I think I'm gonna use that as kind of a transition,
Hmm.
because that is actually one of my favorite scores of the year,
Oh my God,
or of
Nicholas
last year. I
Patel.
mean, yeah.
Whew.
So
That it's
so good.
gorgeous. So
So
good, so
incredible.
good.
So I'm going to talk a little about the music, because I think that a movie that I want to use as a puzzle piece is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which of
Okay.
course is a very different kind of a music score.
Uh-huh.
However, we are going on this journey through the South where we're coming across all these different like colorful characters. They're all so memorable in their own different ways, and along the way, everything is marked by music. There's so much music in the movie, and Queen and Slim, every scene kicks off with music starting, and then boom, we're into a new location or into meeting new people, and
Hmm.
the music just would work as its own soundtrack, and totally beautiful, totally just a killer soundtrack, really. And so I think Oh Brother, Where Art Thou kind of has a similar South journey and that soundtrack aspect.
Yeah. Oh my God. I really want to burst into song as George. Ah! What year was that? My goodness. That was like that song was everywhere.
I want to say
Oh
99, I think. I think it
man.
was 99. But yeah, it's just so good. Maybe 2001. It was somewhere right in there,
Yeah,
99, 2001.
it most certainly was, man. That's really, really, yeah. I think the music of this film, like I said, is really, really strong. And obviously with with Melina Matsoukas' music video background, it was
Totally.
crafty the way that they blended in there was nothing as pronounced of the score like what Nicholas Britell did in A Beale
Sure.
Street
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
Talk. But I think, this being a urban film, a contemporary urban film, having that blend of the score with the soundtrack and describing like the different shades of what the Black experience is musically. That,
Hmm.
like you said, with "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," it's this Mark Twain buddy journey as they're going across the states, and we're spending time with Queen and Slim traversing from Ohio down to Florida, and we shift from rap to soul to jazz to all these different blends of what kind of describes the
Absolutely.
Black sound, which I think was really creative and it was done well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it like you said, it encompasses like a lot of the different genres that could be described as,
Mhm.
Black music. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. What do you got for your next piece?
Yes, my next piece is going to be Ava DuVernay's Netflix series When They See Us. Um,
Mm,
Obviously, there's a focus on opportunity, and Ava DuVernay carved out an opportunity to talk about a story that was kind of forgotten with the Central Park Five rape case back in New York in the 80s, and the fact that these men were wrongfully accused of crime they didn't commit, and it tackled and battled against this, the New York powers that be, that were set on policing badly just to find a sense of justice. And
mhm.
when I reviewed When They See Us earlier this year, this came out this past spring. I gave it a perfect score. It was truly a 10 out of 10 because it did all of the objective elements that make a story work was great. As a puzzle piece, I'm not saying that Queen and Slim works, but I do see the potential that it had to try to be something like that.
Mm.
The love story in this film is the strongest thing. And when I spoke to you earlier about the way that the film is packaged, the way it was filmed and packaged to me is that this story wanted to do multiple things. It wanted to champion a love story, but also talk about a social and political commentary about our times. It
Mm.
attempts to do that, but it never carries it fully in the way in which When They See Us did. When They See Us provided a big, nuanced conversation, and several points throughout this film, there's an attempt to have a conversation, and when it does attempt to do it, it just leaves it and it hangs there. And then when it doesn't at all, it's kind of frustrating. It was frustrating to watch When They See Us because it's heartbreaking of these events that happened within my lifetime. I mean, I grew up in New York, around the early '90s, so I was very much aware of these stories, and I was really hoping that it can live up to that, and unfortunately, it didn't. So the
Mm.
social and political commentary that worked in When They See Us fell very flat in Queen and Slim.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, I mean that it makes absolute sense what you're saying, and I do agree that the love story is really where it's at for this movie. I mean, it's a great love story. It's moving. It's funny. It's just a really great story when it comes to that. And then whether or not it's successful in the rest of what it's trying to pull off, that's where the question definitely comes up. I think that's a great kind of set up for another puzzle piece I was going to talk about, which was, of course, Fruitvale Station.
Mm.
Which I mean, this movie, of course, is fiction, but is of course inspired by so much of the true life violence happening, and with police brutality and all that across the country, and again, whether or not it is whether it's commenting on it in the right way, and especially the way that the movie ends, I don't really know, but I do know that it's definitely inspired by what's happening,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? Um, so, what do you got next? Because that's my next piece is Fruitvale
Yeah,
Station.
these 2 I'm gonna kinda lump together, and maybe it's a little bit of recency bias. 21 Bridges and Black and Blue.
Okay.
Um, 2 films that have just released, a few weeks apart from one another, that were also packaged in a similar way to one be a crime drama, the other to be a crime actioner.
Mhm.
Well, I guess they almost were very, very similar in that to kind of provide a little bit of action, but they both also attempted to kind of have a conversation on policing.
Mhm.
Now, if the film never attempted to purport itself to be that, if it was just saying this is just going to be a crime drama or a crime action film and not try to have a conversation, it'd be different. But when I look up a film synopsis prior to the film comes out and that's a part of it, then that's why like it's kind of stuck and that's what informs, my expectation on it, right?
Sure.
So at those puzzle pieces, when I'm looking at it compared to the lens of Queen and Slim, they both attempted to do it, but for different reasons failed in the same way that Queen and Slim did.
Yeah.
The one thing that I commend Queen and Slim that they did better than those other 2 films is that the traffic stop that happens inside of Queen and Slim, I actually think is one of the best crafted traffic stops in light of kind of these themes that I've
Mhm.
seen on screen probably ever.
Yeah.
A lot of folks never get the opportunity to see a traffic stop go wrong because
Mhm.
unfortunately what ends up happening is that there's lives lost when it does go wrong. Except this is the flip. The life that lost is the one of a cop,
Right,
and we're
right.
able to kind of see, Slim, and I think it actually is pretty beautiful that we don't have the protagonist's names throughout the entire film until the very end of the film.
That's interesting, yeah.
So we know that Daniel Kaluuya's character's name is Ernest, and then Jodie Turner Smith's character's name is Angela. These two have a date that doesn't turn out too great because Ernest makes a swerve and a cop pulls him over, and for whatever reason, the cop pulls him over is that reason. But we're able to see the events as a black man, I have no idea what is expected of me at a traffic stop or
Mm.
what I'm supposed to accept of a police officer at a traffic stop. But the one thing that I do know is that I'm in a position of being vulnerable and essentially subservient to whatever this police officer is telling me to do. And I just have to hope that they're doing the right thing. In 21 Bridges and in Black and Blue, the conversation that they wanted to have about social justice and police brutality gets undercut because it's portraying cops as dirty cops. There's a very
Mm.
big difference between a dirty cop and a cop that's doing bad policing. You know what I mean?
Right, right, absolutely. Like overextending their authority versus
Exactly.
straight up like running drugs or some shit.
Exactly. And in 21 Bridges, we quickly see, like we can very much see that, oh, these cops are up to no good. So it's not that they're bad cops doing their jobs badly. They're just dirty cops. So when
Yeah.
anything happens to those characters, I have no sympathy or empathy towards that because there's no nuance. You've told me that they're on the same footing as the bad guys. So the bad guys are the bad guys too, and the good guys are also the bad guys. As we're in
Yeah.
Queen and Slim, even though we can see that this cop is doing some unethical things,
Yeah.
it's not overtly, it's not dirty. He's not like there was no reach. I'm like, okay, I was wondering if Lena Waithe is gonna have this cop plant drugs or something like that. I think that he
Mm.
was just very bullish on finding something. And then when cops sometimes can take it personal in these type of interactions when they feel like that their authority is being checked, so they puff up their chest and maybe overstep those boundaries, but within reason. They really kind of they straddle that line instead of fully crossing it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even unholstering his weapon, in my opinion, that's crossing the line. But it's I don't think that he went in there with the full intent. Like, I'm going to kill. I really don't think that. And keep in mind, this is a black man saying that. I don't think that that was his intent. But things escalated, and then he got a little bit more in that back and forth. So that's the one thing that Queen and Slim actually did bring to the traffic stop that did well in portraying this as a cop that was doing bad police work and not a dirty cop.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think it has a lot to say. First of all, with Melina Matsoukas' direction, I mean, what's going to happen in that. It's in every
Oh yeah.
trailer, and yet it was
Mhm.
still so tense every
Yes.
second of that traffic stop. It was
And the fact that
crazy.
it was all the prologue to the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you knew every beat that was about to happen, but it's just
Yeah.
yeah, and then I think also some credit where credit's due to Sturgill Simpson playing the cop. He's
Yeah.
a non-actor really, but a great singer, and he did a great job doing that role. I mean,
Oh, so he's not an actor. I haven't looked into him. So he's not an actor?
yeah, no, he's a country singer, and he's actually really good, and
Wow.
one of the few country singers I actually listen to.
Okay.
And yeah, and he's
Hey.
been in 2 movies this year. He's in The Dead Don't Die also.
What?
Um,
Okay.
I
Nah,
was
that's
I
good.
was
He
shocked.
he had he had a, I actually I didn't mind, like I feel like that he was physically imposing. I was supposed to be. There was things that he was doing with his eyes. He was kind of shifty, and yeah. Well, shout out to him. Okay.
Yeah, right. There you go. Well, I'm gonna go with another piece here, and speaking of Melina Matsoukas, I am going to talk about another music video director who made the jump to film for a little while anyway, and that is Hype Williams with Belly.
Oh,
Um, you know,
deep cut.
yeah,
Okay.
right, right. Well, I mean, come on, another director who really knows how to make a stylish looking piece of cinema, something that,
Mm.
I mean, everything just kind of glows and is just so damn beautiful the way that Hype Williams used to make things look back in the day. I don't know what Hype's been up to lately, but I don't know
I
if
mean,
Hype Williams is
the
doing
music
anything.
video era kind of, for me, died out in like 2008.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it's weird where we have access to music videos way more than we ever have before. But like I remember when you participated in a music video's release and it was on TRL and BET for two and a
Hmm.
half months, and that was a big thing to see like what's the number one played video, in the country. So yeah,
It
I
was
think
the
he just
best.
it really I miss those days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, no, and I mean, I don't know if he did much after Belly. I'm sure he did a couple things, but and of course
Hmm.
Belly, as a narrative, I mean, it's a completely different movie, but just the bringing that sense of style, I think, clearly probably
Yeah.
inspired Melina in some ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I definitely see that as well.
For sure. What do you got for your next one?
Yeah, so this one's gonna be a little bit out of the box, and it's only because of the Mark Twain esque style of travel. But I'm gonna go with the Peanut Butter Falcon
Nice. I was actually thinking about that.
because it's very similar in the way that we have these two characters that shouldn't be linked to one another that are, and they only are because they're pitted in this journey that just happens to go kind of in the same direction. Obviously, in Queen and Slim, it's for very different reasons. They are on the run after killing a police officer in self defense.
Hmm.
Where and you have Zach Gostigan. He is escaping a mental institution that is not properly taking care of him as a I want to find like the right word. I really hate I mean, he himself doesn't suffer mental illness, but he just needs to be
Sure.
cared for in a different way. And he was misunderstood, and it was in a facility that was not going to do that. And he had a destination that he wanted to get to, which I think also was in Florida. If it was
Yeah,
somewhere.
I think that's true. Yeah.
I think it was also in Florida. So I mean, uniquely, they kind of have these similar paths, and we're just there for the journey. And along the journey, there's a brotherhood that begins to manifest between Zach Gossigan's character and Shia LaBeouf's character, and it's done in an incredibly tender and sweet way.
Sure.
The one thing that I'll commend the Peanut Butter Falcon for doing better than Queen and Slim is that we had an opportunity to really dig a little bit deeper into the reasons for the decisions in which they're making.
Mm,
Where I was very convinced of the authenticity of all their choices, and it didn't feel contrived. Unfortunately, in Queen and Slim, a lot of the choices felt very illogical and overly emotional for what was
mhm,
presented to us in the diner. And that's because there's a lot that Lena Waithe, as a storyteller, is trying to tackle in the screenplay, and it lacks the narrative focus as like what in the Peanut Butter Falcon, really did well with that.
mm. Interesting. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. The difference there. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. All right, I'm gonna go with another piece here. So, you know, obviously, spoilers abound on this show. But at the end, we get, Daniel Kaluuya, with the slow motion police lights, and we just know what that means.
Mm,
And there was another movie a couple of years ago where Daniel Kaluuya gets confronted by those police lights. But
yep.
we had a completely different situation there where we all got to breathe a sigh of relief, and that was, of course, Get Out.
Did we
Where
though?
Yeah, well, I mean, at least it
It
wasn't it
was
wasn't the police. It wasn't the police, and
correct.
shit didn't
Yeah.
go bad.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And so in this movie, we are getting the opposite of that. We are getting where, oh shit, it is the police, and oh, this is about to go terrible. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
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 So it's kind of flipping the script on that
It is.
that moment.
I found it weird how quick the police arrived. Like it was probably like 15 seconds after they arrive in the tarmac and they see this plane.
Mm-mm.
Like they're seeing freedom in front of them,
Yeah.
and the police are right there to cut them off. And I got to say this, me personally, that last scene is emotionally manipulative.
Hmm.
I was really checked out for a bulk of the second and third act.
Hmm.
Um, this scene on its face is really, really strong and powerful. It's also very traumatic. There's a lot of people that will decide not to watch this movie knowing
Hmm.
that this type of scene can possibly exist inside of it because it's hard to see. Um, I'm a big proponent of justice, and the one thing that that plagues me as a black man is the idea that when all these things happen, and the things that ail us in this country, like the issues with social injustice and police brutality and just policing in general, is the idea of like what is justice. And I'll ask anybody that scene, that sees Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner Smith, faced with a decision. Can we really say that justice was served?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine any just law enforcement saying like, you know what, I feel good. I feel like I did what my job. It doesn't. And I feel like if you, as as law enforcement, can say that, you shouldn't be able to sleep at night with yourself. But if you can't, then I feel like we need to combat that. And I was really hoping that this film would just at least open up a conversation to combat it. Like have a media story to do that, or other characters in the film have that conversation. So it was a tough scene to watch, to be honest.
Yeah.
It
I
really, and
feel
it's
like
different.
I feel like the choice was made like very deliberately to, be provocative by ending it
Oh
that
yeah.
way, and not to give us anything resembling, a happy ending or anything for these
Mhm.
characters, or feel like justice was served, like to make us mad.
Yeah, and it's weird because, I'll slide in another puzzle piece to kind of, like,
Sure.
attach to that. If you think of Denzel Washington in Training Day,
Mm,
it's a very similar ending,
right,
and yet
right.
I felt completely different about it, and I think it's because, the way that that film was crafted, I had a lot more time to spend with Lonzo and
Mm,
understanding what makes this man tick. And that's just an homage to the screenplay doing a better job at giving me the full color to his journey that I
mm.
was that was lacking for me in Queen and Slim. Even though as effective as that scene was inside of Queen and Slim, it definitely was a little bit emotion manipulative because I can't not feel for it. I just
Mhm.
can't, even though I feel like I didn't earn it.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's that manipulation, but I mean, it's nice to look at along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it most certainly is, but it was tough to stomach with a lot of things. I mean, this was the first film this year that I almost walked out of.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wha
the protest scene.
Mm. Okay,
Um,
I'm interested. What about it specifically,
yeah,
was
I'll
that
give you the another puzzle piece. I came with a lot of
okay.
them. The Hate You Give last
Mhm.
year with Amandla Stenberg that had a very Um, huge protest scene, that I was background on actually,
Oh,
shout out. It was right here in my backyard here in Atlanta where it was shot, right down the street
nice.
from where I live, and it was like being a part of it, it was really, really cool to get back to it, I've taken a little break from behind, from in front of the camera, so it was nice to kinda stretch my legs a little bit and stuff, but,
Mm,
I love the way that that protest scene happened because 1, we had full focus on it. So a couple of different things about the protest scene in Queen and Slim. It was for some really tasteless reason intercut with a graphic sex scene,
sure.
which, like I said, it's that, and I think what's happening is that Lena Waithe, she's a first time feature writer. She's a little bit too attached to the story, and I'd be very interested to hear, her commentary on it or like the decision to spice it together. Maybe that was a Melina, decision or not. But to
Mm,
have this protest scene that on its own should have a lot of relevance in the film, intercut with this very tender moment that blossoms into, I'll say this, I don't want to say unusual. Unusual isn't the word. Unconventional lovemaking. We don't get a chance to see that in film. One, it
sure.
was a very long scene. Two, we typically don't see two darker skinned black leads in a love scene,
Mhm.
traditionally. And that was the whole point with trying to have this love story minus the white lens. And typically, you don't get multiple pumps in a movie. Like then you go to like the NC-17 rating, but there's multiple pumps, and it is pretty graphic on
Yeah,
its own. Both of those scenes could have been powerful. Where the scene completely falls apart, and in my mini review, I called this movie socially irresponsible. Was there's a young boy in the film, kind of like Amandla Stenberg's character, and Amandla Stenberg's younger brother in The Hate You Give, who angrily pulls out a gun,
mhm.
and it was so undeserved. Like it wasn't earned. There was nothing that we learned from that character when we were first introduced to the young boy inside of Queen and Slim. He has this, kind of very narrow, idealized version of who Queen and Slim are, and he said some very poetic things, and you could hear that coming. Like that's it's like as if Lena Waithe is speaking right through this young actor. He's a good young actor too, and it says,
Sure.
I want to be immortal, bro. You are 12. Go to school. Like don't worry about being immortal
Yeah.
or nothing like that, right? So I could understand those words like that from like a 25 or a 35-year-old man that's been dealing with so much life where it's pressing upon him and it's like looking for something more. And this kid rushes into the protest and is angry. And I'm okay, okay, you're angry. But then we know as an audience, okay, if this kid doesn't calm down, I think that he's going to be a victim, right? Like we're all
Hmm.
thinking it. The protesters are hype, the cops are hype, and there's this black cop that comes up to us like, "Yo, you don't want to be here, man." And I'm just really hoping, like, I hope another cop doesn't see this, this encounter and misconstrue it, and then it heightens everything. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, oh my God, please don't beat this little kid up on screen. Oh,
Mm.
please. And then the kid pulls out a gun. Bro, please, yo, in my mind, oh, a cop is going to see this kid pointing a gun at another cop and is going to kill this kid.
Hmm.
And then this kid kills this cop. The cop that's been very nice and pleasant to him, wasn't yelling, wasn't being like combative, blows his brains out. Right before that, we see them climax together. It was just, I didn't understand it. I almost walked out, and there was no all the age, like every good intention that I was really trying to give this film just went out the window.
Yeah, I wish I knew what the intention was. Like, it's possible to throw a couple of ideas out there, but I mean, yeah, I just don't know. I think it's a little misguided to have combined those scenes that way. I think on their own they could have worked much better.
Mhm.
Even still, the kid like that just seemed so out of place. I don't know.
Yeah, and in this climate, we got to understand that there's arguments to be made on both sides of the conversation. The conversation that I feel like this film doesn't really have, but there's folks that really like. I had people talk to me on Twitter that said I have no interest in watching a film about a black couple that are going on a cop killing spree.
Hmm.
Legitimately, people think that this film is about a cop killing spree across the country,
Hmm.
and it's a scene like that would like let them believe that that was right.
Right, right,
you know?
exactly.
And if
Yeah.
there was and even after that scene, there's no conversation. When Queen and Slim were made aware that this kid, like they were asked by Flea and Chloe Sevigny's characters, hey, a kid died at a protest. Did you tell him to kill a cop? I'd be
Right.
like, no. And that would have been the great opportunity to have this conversation. We got this black couple, we got this white couple. Let's talk, right? Find a
Hmm.
way to artistically craft this scene together so that way we can know, all right, what is your standpoint on this? Maybe let's hear, multiple sides to it. Maybe that could have been an opportunity for this couple to say, you know what? I think a better way to defend yourselves is to turn yourself in. But they
Hmm.
never had that conversation. And like it just completely gets left. And oh, it was so frustrating.
Yeah, I could completely see where you're coming from there. That it definitely is frustrating. Um, well, I'm going to go to another puzzle piece, and I think something you were just saying about people thinking it's like they're just going across countries killing cops or something like that. Obviously, even Bokeem Woodbine makes the joke, the Black Bonnie and Clyde. I'm going to use Bonnie and Clyde, but as kind of an anti-puzzle piece because that the joke is made, but that's not what this is,
Not
and
at all.
I think they go they made every effort of making sure that this is not that story. This is not a Black Bonnie and Clyde story or anything like that, or a 21st century update to that or anything like that. This is something completely different, even though on the surface we know people are going to think it.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
it's
know.
it's tough, especially because that line was inside of the first trailer. So it's
Hmm.
something that sticks with you because those are characters that like really unfortunately we never should have praised them, but they were kind of glorified. I mean, think we have icons in the music industry like Jay-Z and Beyonce. One of their
Hmm.
first collaborations was Bonnie and Clyde '04.
Right. Right.
You know? You know what I'm saying? And it's like there's this romanticization of Bonnie and Clyde, but like they were doing bad things. And so it was a little irresponsible to package the film that way. And maybe that's to kind of say like, oh, the media twists things. We say Bonnie and Clyde, but like this isn't it. Like yeah, but we gotta, there's a lot of people that are just gonna latch onto that
Yeah.
for the
Absolutely.
wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we move on to your next piece, also just, shout out Bokeem Woodbine's hilarious in this movie.
Yo, Uncle Earl,
So
like
good.
it's weird. I didn't think that the tone. I felt like this comedy didn't fit the tone of the film, but on its
Hmm.
own, this comedy was so funny.
So good.
And I really didn't want to laugh because I was frustrated at the movie, but like he was kind of refreshing. He brought this levity that I had no idea we were gonna get in this film, and just his line delivery, his affectations. Like he has a scene where he's just sitting down at a coffee table, like looking at his rings and he's counting them, like, did you take my ring? It is so funny. It is so just his encounter with the cop, who I guess was like dating one of his girls. It is
Uh-huh.
it is, man, wow. It is funny, but I did not want to laugh.
I know, right?
Oh man.
It could have been such a different movie if we had just stayed at Uncle Earl's house the whole time. Best
It
comedy
really
of the
could
year.
have. You know what? I asked myself, as you know, writing both comedy and drama, I wonder if the entire tone, if we would have changed it to be a little bit more lighter, right? Like, is there a
Sure.
way that this film could have played out as I think comedies do a great job at being biting, but then also being a satire and a reflection to society. I mean, if you look at
Sure.
Jojo Rabbit, it's a satire about the absurdity of hating something that you don't understand, told through the lens of a child. And that
Mm.
was incredibly strong. Like, great, all right, perfect. I'll grab that as another puzzle piece, using that. And maybe a lot of my puzzle pieces can kind of feel like anti-puzzle pieces because I did not like this film. But it also, like, I can see where it was going, right?
Mm.
I really, really do. And even when I came to like my final rating on this film, I had to be respectful about like what the intent was. And then also, like, I'm not too sure how your audience received it. My audience loved it.
Oh, Queen and Slim?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was a great audience experience.
Yeah.
People were really into the movie.
Yeah, and it was tough. It was tough to kind of sit through. I personally didn't clap and cheer when the police officer got shot. I found that to be a little bit disheartening,
Yeah.
and just I feel like it could have been taken. But I get it. Like I completely understood. I understood the geographically where I was.
Mm.
So I got that right. But yeah, it definitely. I was wondering how it would play depending upon like different audiences, but I think I'm out of puzzle pieces.
Okay. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? In that case, I just got one more. And, before I
yeah,
do that, I do think it's interesting. A lot of the pieces that you talked about were such recent movies. And I think that says something to the moment that we're in. You know what I mean? Where
hmm
we're going to be talking about a lot of these things mixed into other kinds of stories, whether it be a love story, on the road story, whatever. We're mixing in a lot of these themes into these movies.
yeah. No, and I think it's kind of we're at a point where a lot of the content, because we digest so much content. I think there's an unspoken itch that we have to try. Like we need something else too.
Sure.
Like this is not a popcorn movie. Like we could
Right.
just eat
Right.
popcorn and just keep like here. No, I think there's these films that come along where it needs to speak a little bit. I think directors are a little bit more conscious of that,
Sure.
and some are more overt than others, and it's just a shift in our climate, and that's because the climate that we're in. It seems that there's a lot of things that are at stake.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, all right, I'm going to do one last one and then we'll get to some closing thoughts. But last one, and this might seem a little bit silly, but I'm just going as a genre with superhero movies. And the reason why is because it seems like a running theme through a lot of superhero movies. Maybe this is more of a DC thing than a Marvel thing, but is the hero that is becoming more of an image, despite a lot of public scrutiny, and they have to hide from the public while they're finding their footing as a hero and that kind of
Mhm,
thing. And Queen and Slim, this is basically like an origin story of this symbol of fighting back.
mhm.
And so I think in a lot of ways it uses a little bit of that kind of hero trajectory.
Kinda like with Katniss Everdeen, like, they unwillingly became a symbol,
Sure.
I mean, there's no Mockingjay in this film, but unfortunately, like, they become immortalized, on murals and T-shirts, and I really I don't wanna call them heroes because I think heroes ultimately do good, and, even though that they did nothing bad, they did
Hmm.
not like, they're not criminals in the sense that they went out to shoot and kill a cop. They killed this cop in self-defense.
Sure.
But everything that happens after that, they don't actually make any good choices or do good things. They're literally just trying to escape.
Right.
But they become, their story becomes bigger than themselves. Their story
Absolutely.
transforms into a legacy and like a rallying cry,
Hmm.
and it's unfair on them. They're just trying to survive,
Yeah,
but
they didn't ask for this.
they most certainly did it. But they're also very much aware of it. Like they become aware very early that they know that the black community at the very least is in their corner,
Hmm.
when they're trying to get a cheeseburger, when they're trying to
Yeah.
get their car fixed and stuff. They are aware, and it's unique to see that. And I think because we do want something good as black and brown communities, and then honestly of non black and brown communities that are advocates to cheer for. We've
Hmm.
spent a number of years hearing about the Philando Castillos, about the Sandra Blands, and
Mm.
we're tired of it. And this
Yeah.
is something, even though it's fiction, it's different. So I
Hmm.
can't knock folks for wanting to root for this film. And
Sure.
it's tough to vocalize a lot of what I've been saying about it, and I've gotten a lot of backlash, to be honest. So it's but I will say, even though I didn't fully enjoy this film, I think that the conversation that we're having outside of it sometimes has been really, really healthy.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Well, why don't I do the finish puzzle, and then we'll get to a couple more closing thoughts on the movie.
Yeah.
Finish puzzle for Queen and Slim included If Beale Street Could Talk, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, When They See Us, Fruitvale Station, 21 Bridges, Black and Blue, Belly, The Peanut Butter Falcon, Get Out, Training Day, The Hate You Give, Bonnie and Clyde, Jojo Rabbit, and superhero movies. Um,
Wow.
yeah, wild list all over the
Yeah.
place. But I mean, this movie is an interesting thing. I think my first closing thought would be, I'm really curious to see what Melina Matsoukas does next. I'm curious to see if she is the director that does really beautiful love stories, or things, human stories, things like that, or the political filmmaker, the side of this that is pushing buttons, and the side of this that is interested in getting to big issues and things like that. I'm curious if it's one or the other, or or if it's going to be continuing to go down a path of combining things like that. I think that's an interesting trajectory for a new, fresh director.
Yeah, and I think the momentum that both her and Lena Waithe have, irregardless of what a lot of different pundits, commentators, movie reviewers, and critics have of the film, that they are responsible with using that momentum to project their thoughts and ideas and wishes forward. One, I guess, shout out to Melina Matsoukas. She won Best Breakthrough Director at the NBR Awards just the other
Nice.
night, the National Board Review. These the precursor award season that we're in right now, and I don't see this as an Oscar-worthy film, but obviously there's a voting body that thought that her direction, as a breakthrough director, was strong, and that's the one thing that I absolutely will congratulate this film at doing. And I think that she has the eye to do it. It's the director's job to tell the story through images, and that's exactly what she did. It's the writer's job to sell us on the story, with
Hmm.
its characters and the plot. Lena Waithe, in the short time that she's been in like the public space, she has carved out a name for herself. She's doing The Shy, which is a Showtime series, and she's got a lot of content coming on BET Plus. And she was in Ready Player One, and she's doing AT&T commercials and all this other stuff. She ain't going nowhere. And I'll say this: she is taking it like a champ with the detractors of this film.
Mm.
I made my review very public. She liked it and she thanked me, and then we had like a little conversation back and forth. So I was good, and I
Nice.
and I said, "Yo," I said, "that is dope of you to really, one, there's a lot of folks who tell stories that Like like we just think that, oh, they don't hear anything. No, they do. And obviously she did, and she sees it and she reacts, and she just thanks people for being able to have, the conversation for those that love it and for those that don't. And I think that's a very graceful way to go about your business. So yeah, I really hope that both of them really continue to tell stories and learn from it. Learn from the good, learn from the bad.
Hell yeah. Any other final thought on this one before we wrap it up?
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya. The boy can do no wrong.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I love it when you find an actor that I don't care what the movie is. All I know is that his name is attached to it. I will watch it. Anything with Daniel Kaluuya, I will watch. The boy can elevate any script I've seen. I was in love with the script, and anything that had to do with him, he killed it.
Yeah, he sure did. He was perfect in this.
He
Absolutely.
really, really is. He's a very, very gifted performer. And even Jodie Turner-Smith, green in some areas where I think she didn't elevate the script, but, it's her first, feature role. I will say this, she's an effortless beauty. There's this very kind of angelic breathiness to her
Definitely.
vocal. And that's just like, wow, she sounds like a dream girl. And she definitely did look like it on screen. So I really, hope to see her do more work. But I'll say this, this last word, onto like kind of where I am, objectively, a lot of strong elements. Subjectively, because of the way the film was packaged, it didn't meet my expectations. But I'm glad that I approach things respectfully enough to understand that I just can't singularly allow my unmet expectations to color my entire criticism. So I'm glad to be able to have conversations like this. That I think that this film, if it doesn't do it well in the film, at least forces us to have a conversation outside of it to talk about it.
Sure. That absolutely makes sense. What's another movie that you watched recently that you want to recommend to our listeners?
Oh man, most recently, let's I'll do this. I just posted it this afternoon. Is Netflix's and Marty Scorsese's The Irishman.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed. Yo,
Talk about a movie you could talk about for a while.
I mean, the movie itself talks about itself for a while, right? It's unique. One, it was a chore to try to find time to watch the movie. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and 3.5 hours in home without any distraction is damn near impossible.
That's why I love the theater so much, people.
Oh my gosh. And I really did try, but just with the nature of how the film was released, it was really, really difficult to find it anywhere. And it's like, well, I'm not going to go watch it in a theater because it's finally available the day before it comes out on Netflix. That just doesn't make sense. But The Irishman, it is, I guess if I want to poke fun, it's pure cinema. It's a whole lot of cinema. It's more cinema probably than we can handle. And at 3.5 hours, I think Marty says everything exactly that he wants to say, and Netflix has no problem paying him to do it. But for me, though, does it live up to hype? I don't think so, man. I think everybody's being super hyperbolic saying that this is a game changer. But it's not a bad film. Like, not at all. I think the direction is really great. I think the acting performances are fantastic. I think the production design and the music is really, you're gonna love it. As a music guy, you're gonna love the music. I thought it was really, really good throughout. But
Absolutely.
it just doesn't do anything special for me.
I think the thing with this movie, and I really, really love it, but it has to sit with you. And it may still not open itself up in any way. Obviously everyone's different, but I think definitely sit with it for a while. You've already sat with it 3.5 hours. Sit with it for a while longer because it's definitely a grower for me. I mean, I've found myself liking it more and more by the day since I got to see it.
I'll say that since I watched it night before last, and some of the conversations I've had this afternoon since I posted my review, there's been things that people have talked about that's let me see it. So you're absolutely right. There are some films that, if you weren't completely sold on, with time, it could just start sitting with you. And with having the dialogues like this, it's like, I can appreciate that a little bit more. I'm not one of those critics where it's like, this is my rating and this is never gonna change. No, man. That's the beauty of art. The way that I think about art can be different from day to day. And I've got no problem changing my stance on it. And, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I'm still high on it. just
That's
not as
pretty
high as
good.
others. Yeah, like some people were mad that I wasn't giving it like 10 out of 10. I'm like, whoa, hold on, 8 out of 10 is still super high. But I'll tell you this: I think the film could have been told in 2 hours or 2.5 hours,
Mhm.
maybe. And the VFX were very uneven.
All right. There you
Yeah.
go.
Irish Men. Go, but do watch it. I think it's too good of a movie not to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Colby, this was awesome. Tell people again where they could find your work.
Yeah, you can find your boy, all of my written content at KolbyToldMe.com. You can follow me on all the socials at Kolby Told Me on Facebook. I'm at Kolby Mac. Check out my podcast at Kolby Told Me Podcast. I drop that probably about once a week. It's really whenever I want to. I'm on the Minorities Report Film Podcast where I co-host that. And coming soon is the Stream Team Podcast. It's going to be the sports center for streaming. So we're going to talk about it all. Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, all the pluses. Check it out.
That was a good plug right there, I gotta say.
Yeah, try, man.
Well, thanks, man. Hopefully we get you back again one of these days.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you very much. I love your podcast. I'm a fan. I really like your music. I'm gonna have to hire you to do some special music
Oh, hell yeah.
on my stuff, man. I really, really do like your sound. But thank you very much for carving out this conversation, and I'd be welcome to come back whenever you want.
Awesome.
Sound and Vision is the name, with movie trivia being the game. The theme-based weekly wonder where you, yes you the listener, can play along by guessing the films we're throwing at you by deciphering our cryptic clues. Join us while we break down movies in a way that only me and my weekly guests can. Come and find us on all platforms which podcasts are available and get your pop culture fix.
All right, hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kolby Mac about Queen and Slim. Thanks, Kolby, for joining me on the show. It was great talking to you. And if you're out there listening and you want to get into some puzzle pieces, New Year is right around the corner, and we're going to have a lot of movies to cover. So I'm always looking for new guest co-hosts. So get in touch. And also, you just heard an ad for another great podcast. I always play an ad for another podcast, at the end of every episode. So if you're a podcaster and you've got an ad for your show, shoot me a message. I will include it in one of the future episodes. I love supporting this great podcast community, Podern family, right? Whatever that means. I'm not sure, but, it's cool that they're doing what they're doing. Anyway, I want to remind you, as always, to make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. You could also join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. And you know what? We got a Patreon. If you want to, send us a little bit of money each month, which we will put towards something or other. I don't know. You'll get bonus episodes, early access to new episodes that aren't up yet. I'm about to put the Terminator Dark Fate and the Jojo Rabbit episodes in there, and you can currently get the Jay and Silent Bob reboot episode that's already in there. I'm going to be doing all kinds of new stuff in 2020. Right now, just trying to get through the end of the year, but there's going to be a lot of new stuff in there coming 2020. So, I don't know if that means you should wait until the next year to become a patron, but, I wouldn't stop you from becoming a patron now. That would be nice if you did. Plus, you can get my albums. That's always fun. So I'm rambling. We should close this episode up with a piece of music like we always do, shouldn't I? We got lots of new episodes coming your way next week, including starting a whole bunch of bonus episodes. This is the end of the year, of course, and there's going to be a lot of bonus episodes, top 10 lists, all kinds of stuff. So we got so much coming your way. Let's close this thing out, man. Queen and Slim being a very hip-hop heavy film, I'm going to take the opportunity to play a track from Skydro again. Skydro is a hip-hop artist here in Las Vegas that I produced coming up on a decade pretty soon ago that I produced his album, but it's a great album. I'm very proud of it, and I haven't talked to Skydro in a while, but I hope he's out there doing good. But I'm going to play one of the tracks from the album. That seems like a good fit to close this one out. Why don't I play for you guys a track called Unsolved Missed Stories? like Unsolved Mysteries, but Unsolved Missed Stories. I think this fits pretty well with the theme of the movie Queen and Slim. So let's close this one out with that, and we'll be back next week with more Piecing It Together.
Hey, they wrote a song about us. Turn it up, turn it up. Turn it up, they put a song. Hey, the police shuffle.
Can we talk to you? Excuse me, ma'am, is your son at home?
Say he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's doing his job. It's like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about your friend. Hey, Mr. Officer, I'm not talking to you, let's talk about them.
Is Lincoln Messiah
Here
at
we
home?
go again, he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people
Get in the
how he's
car.
doing his job. Seeing visions of body bags, 5-0 with bloody rags. If
Stop.
this nurse need a cigarette, just take a bloody drag. Cause
on the
there's
dash.
forensic scientists with the bloody badge. Bloody this, bloody piston, Mr. Bloody Bad. We look once, look twice, so where the OG gone. Check Fox News, here policeman swap to the left. Gangsta bus about the word and the rest. To the right, policeman, I aim the red light in him chest. Just another day on the West California police, I give the ghetto youth stress. He's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many
just like to
people
have a
he
talk.
kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's doing his job. It's like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about your friend.
Come on.
Hey, Mr. Officer, I'm not talking to you, let's talk about them.
Take it easy on yourself. Come
Here
on.
we go again, he's a murderer under the
come on
disguise
out.
of a shield.
all I
And how he
ask. Come
makes
on
his
out.
money, how
Come
many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's doing his job. When murderer this, undercover of explorer and the key. Witness in the case, set him never did see. No did a try, cause him died from the pipe. While another poor man, oh she heard him cry. Say he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto
Any
people
kind
is
of
how he's
recent
doing
photo?
his job. It's like, I'm not
We're
talking
looking
to
for
you, I'm talking about your friend. Hey, Mr. Officer, I'm not talking to you, let's talk about them. Here we go again, he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's
I
doing
wanted
his
you to
job.
read
It's
for
like,
it, so I
welcome
coulda
to the
killed you.
Unsolved Mysteries. That's MISSED, mysteries. Welcome to the ghetto children history. Picture being handcuffed so your wrists will bleed. Crooked cops plus crooked Glocks equals a crooked stop. Spin watch your ass and plant some crooked rocks. Now I was born in this world, I didn't make it like Pac. On every dollar that I make, the system takes it right back. It's like they want it all back. It can't just be cause I'm black, I mean Kolby was on trial, but nobody's messing with Shaq. Say he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many people he kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's
Make it
doing
easy
his
on
job. It's
yourself,
like,
Jeff.
I'm not talking
Come
to you, I'm talking about your friend. Hey, Mr. Officer, I'm not talking to you, let's talk about them. Here we go again, feels like no tomorrow. When every day you got pain and sorrow. Like the Middle East, feels like no tomorrow. If I ain't got no soul, I'm hollow. No mark or no peace, there's no tomorrow. When every day you got to beg and borrow. So tell the police there's no tomorrow. When tomorrow's full of horror. Say he's a murderer under the disguise of a shield. And how he makes his money, how many
just like to
people
have a
he
talk.
kills. He's a murderer under the disguise of a badge. And killing ghetto people is how he's doing his job. It's like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about your friend.
I
Hey,
wanted you to
Mr.
reach for
Officer,
it, so I
I'm
coulda
not
killed
talking
you.
to you, let's talk about them. Here we go again.
And all points west.